Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of At the Movies with William Fletcher. As per usual, I am your host, William Fletcher, and this week I am joined by Aaron Laffin, joining me again. He has done
Sup?
often in the past, and for this week's episode, we are going to be taking a look at probably the only time this year we're delving into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, so with Deadpool and its sequel, Deadpool 2, to tie into the release of Deadpool and Wolverine, which will be coming out this week when this episode goes out.
I'm so excited for that movie. I'm so excited. It looks so good.
So tying this into Deadpool. So Aaron, you asked me ages ago actually if you wanted to do an episode on Deadpool, and I said yes. We'll talk about Deadpool when Deadpool 3 comes out, and it's coming out very soon when we're recording this.
Oh, look, I'm excited for it. A lot of the teasers I've seen for that movie, it's really piqued my interest. Like they've got like Ladypool showing up in there, which is awesome. It seems like they're bringing a lot of the comic book characters into it, like from the Deadpool comics, which is really cool. So I'm pretty excited for them. For the third movie.
Yeah. I will say that last time we talked about the MCU together, it was time to Thor. We're talking about Thor, and you were very excited about Thor, Love and Thunder, and then, well, if you want to hear Aaron's thoughts on that, go to the review of the year 2022, because it was not as you were disappointed, to say the least, about.
But I will say this: that the Deadpool movies have a really good track record. I've loved both movies. They serious good track record, and I would say one of the better Marvel movies to come out in recent years.
Yeah. So to specifically the sort of the history of, I guess the history of the films more specifically, it was very much a long process of getting the films made. There was sort of, for the longest time, they had Deadpool in X-Men Origins Wolverine, and they
We don't talk about that Deadpool.
We don't. That's because that's not really Deadpool. The sort of earlier stuff in the movie is kind of reminiscent of Deadpool, but it's the
We still
last
had Ryan
third.
Reynolds.
We still did have
as
Ryan
Deadpool.
Reynolds as Deadpool in that part, and but yeah, a lot of fans were obviously very upset over that, and very justifiably so, might I add. But I think that, and then there was some sort of test footage that got leaked. I say leaked in quotations because I'm fairly confident Ryan Reynolds just.
Ryan Reynolds has hinted at it several times that he may or may not have leaked that test footage.
Yeah, and to be honest, it is interesting, this sort of, I guess, retrospectively looking back, because Deadpool is such a big hit. Like, the first Deadpool film was such a big film, and people loved it. So it's kind of surprising to look back on that Fox was sort of apprehensive about making a Deadpool film.
I think the major thing about the Deadpool film was that it's a superhero movie, where the superhero isn't actually really a superhero. He's more of an anti-hero, and he's extremely foul-mouthed and violent. And not saying that Fox hasn't done anything like that before, but like it was like around that time when the MCU was really picking up, right? And they were like concerned, oh, we're doing an R-rated superhero movie. That might not be the best, not what everyone's looking for, So like that was, I know that was one of the major concerns for Fox with the movie. Of course, the fans didn't really care. It's bloody good movie.
Yeah, no, it did remarkably well in terms of the money it made. Like, I remember when Deadpool came out, we had just started high school, like, and I remember it was like a massive deal when it came out.
And yeah, they
People
were
were
like,
just going on about.
don't take your
Yeah,
kids to it.
exactly. You sort of this point, sort of, because for the however many years now, superheroes had rarely gone. They weren't R-rated movies. They were like family orientated or more. Yeah, I don't want to say kid orientated, but they were aimed more at a general
They were more like PG to M rated. Maybe occasionally you would get like an MA, say like for like I think Blade was
Yeah, I think
MA.
Blade. But yeah, on the
Which is
whole, yeah, the superhero genre was very much, on the whole, aimed at sort of a general audience, and wasn't aimed, and an R-rated movie was sort of not what they were doing, but it did really well. I'm just looking here. The film had a budget of the $58 million, and it grossed $782.8 million, which is remarkably good for an R-rated movie. I think, like, for an R-rated
oh
movie
yeah.
to do that well is impressive, because it is very limiting on it does limit the audience.
Look, I'll say this: the marketing team and Ryan Reynolds and all that kind of stuff for like the trailers and all kind of stuff. They didn't reveal too much of the movie. They they gave you enough to entice you, like, oh, this character's gonna be in it. Okay. But like they were very good at marketing the movie as well. And I feel like that
Yeah,
sold a
they
lot of
did.
people to go see it. So a lot of people concerned, will the Deadpool movie, will he break the fourth wall? Will he do the standard Deadpool shenanigans, you know? They landed it like perfectly. Like, yeah, it's one that honestly, they changed the story up a little bit, but they made it, I would say it's one of the most comic book accurate superhero movies
Mm.
to the character.
Yeah, I mean, I guess to sort of get onto the cast, I think Ryan Reynolds is very well cast in that role. Um, I think he's sort of one of those casting choices that, like, it makes sense. Like, he's up there, I'd say, with like J.K. Simmons in Spider-Man films, Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, like, where it's just that
Robbie
casting.
Downey Jr. as Iron Man.
Of course, yeah, Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man, yeah, where it's just a great piece of casting that it's like you can't really see anyone else in that role. And I definitely think it's a good idea that Disney are keeping Ryan Reynolds for Deadpool 3. They're not recasting the role there, because I think, well, first of all, I think the fans would kick off if it wasn't Ryan Reynolds in Deadpool 3. Like, if they'd
Oh yeah.
said, no, we're gonna have a new guy as Deadpool, I think that definitely the fan backlash would have been, yeah, very high. So I think that they made the right call. Um, and yeah, I think I think he works really well. I think Ryan Reynolds has that sort of charisma that you sort of need from this character. I think he does a very good job at being,
Oh, okay.
because he's a
The funny thing
character
is,
who is like
he
violent.
matches he oh yeah, and he like just matches the energy of Deadpool so well. Like, the voice, the mannerisms, the like how he moves, how he improvises a lot of the lines, but they're always like pretty spot on for Deadpool.
Yeah,
Um, like the fact that Ryan Reynolds, I'm fairly sure Ryan Reynolds is also Canadian, which is great
yes, I believe, yes, he is also Canadian.
because Deadpool is also Canadian,
Mm.
which is awesome. I feel like a lot of people associate it heavily on like the American superheroes in Marvel and all that kind of stuff when it comes to movies.
Hmm.
But like when you spread out a little bit more to the more like, the other heroes, it's really cool.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that Ryan Reynolds has that. Yeah, he just works in this role, and you can tell he clearly cares about this role, about this character, which I think is very important. I think because this is a part that like you do kind of need someone who can come in and who fits that part but can also improvise when necessary. Like you need someone who can improvise and just can throw lines out and sort of create this
100%.
likability for a character who in theory isn't like the most likable character because he's killing lots of people, bad people, but he is still a mass, killing a mass amount of people, but he just has a likable presence that really adds to the film and creates there's just a genuine likability to the character that I think is needed.
He's good at doing the randomness of Deadpool. Deadpool
Mhm.
is a character built on randomness. He does random shit all the
Mhm.
time, you know?
Yeah.
And that's one of the big appeals to Deadpool is like next section, he's doing something and then he turns to you in the comic page and then talks to the actual reader and
Yeah.
then goes back to what he was doing. And then he makes like comments on it and all the time and stuff like that. And it's like to have that kind of randomness
Hmm.
is awesome. And especially to see stuff like that from the movie, like in the movie itself. Like, when one of my favorite lines in the first movie is when the Casper thing and it like slow mo's and zooms onto his face and he goes, "Shit, did I leave the stove on?" I
Yeah.
just, that is such, yeah, I honestly think like Deadpool in this is just perfect. It is just a
Mm.
really good cast in general of all the characters.
Yeah, I mean, to sort of get more onto the other cast members, we've got Marina Baccarin as Vanessa, who's his sort of girlfriend, who sort of then becomes his wife in the second film. And I think they work together really well. They have a really nice chemistry between the two of them in their sort of sort of when they meet. And there's this very I don't it's kind of extended of them just having sex, just lots of sex across the year on
Yeah,
various holidays, which is a
very
choice.
romantic, Oh, this should have been a this should have been a what's it called, a Valentine episode, talking about the romance of Deadpool,
it, sh-
'Cause
it should have been,
doesn't
yeah.
doesn't doesn't he say that this is a love story or something like that
Yeah, that's what he
at the
says.
start of the movie? Yeah.
Yeah, near the start of the movie. So it would have, and I mean, this did come out during like around Valentine's Day in 2016 came out. So yeah, February 12th, 2016. So it's just before Valentine's Day. Um, I think on the whole, this film's cast are then none of them. I don't think any of them are bad. I would say any of them are bad or anything. I do think though they do feel a bit besides Ryan Reynolds, I guess, because I think Ryan Reynolds is very good and sort of steals I don't know if steals the spotlight necessarily, but he's the most obvious character, whereas everyone else that yeah, again, I don't think that they do a bad job or anything. They're just sort of less um engaging to me, I guess. I was not as invested in what they were doing as much as I was with when Ryan Reynolds was on screen. I think he really carries the film to a degree. Um, but yeah, no, the rest of the cast they're all good. They all do a good job. It's just Ryan Reynolds is just clearly the bigger part. so he does stand out more because he is, yeah.
which happens a lot in like I look. Deadpool's one of those characters that he kind of like he stands out, and that's like the
Mhm,
point of of him. He's a like standout character, but
mhm,
like comparing it to like the first and I feel like the second movie had the characters more fleshed out, the side
mhm,
characters.
mhm,
The first movie was more about just introducing Deadpool and making it land, like making it
mhm.
bam, hit, hit, and like keep going. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I
Um,
think that's, yeah, a fair point to make.
but Stefan as Colossus.
Mm.
I'm not going to try to do his last name because
Let
yeah,
me just,
uh,
yeah, oh, yeah, I'm not gonna try that at all because
yeah,
I've got
yeah.
no idea.
So it's sorry guys if you want to know his last name. But we're both. I'm not good at speaking other languages too often. So
Mm.
I'm not even good at speaking my own language, which is English. So
But
um,
yeah, anyway, yeah, Colossus is a solid. I think he works well off of Ryan Reynolds. I think he does a solid job here. Um,
I think a lot of some of the funniest scenes is Deadpool interacting with Colossus, and I like
mm,
the fact that he even had they added Colossus to the movie,
mm,
and like somebody also as like random as Negasonic Teenage Warhead. Both two
yeah,
characters. Colossus gets a little bit more noticeable in the comics, more notice, but
mm,
it's they're still like not well-known characters unless you're a fan.
mm,
So I like
yeah,
having seen them in the movies. I'm like, oh, that's awesome that they have those two
yeah,
characters in the movie.
and it does. Yeah, and also they're not like they're not like expensive characters either to use. Like they're not, Wolverine or Professor X or
Mhm.
thing. They're just like they're. I think because I'm aware of Colossus from the other X-Men movies, but they had a different actor in that.
Oh, look, Stefan is. I feel like Stefan's pretty perfect for Colossus.
I think he
Like
works.
I
Yeah,
think
I
he was
think
a
he
pretty good
has. Well, he
casting.
has a character. He has a character that I feel like the X-Men films don't really give him, and I think he has, yeah, a bit to do, and he bounces off of yeah, Ryan Reynolds. Some of the better stuff is honestly most of the stuff that I really liked in this film was just when it was the characters bouncing off each other and just the dialogue scenes.
Y-
Because
Yeah, like when Colossus first shows up, on the after the big bridge scene,
mm,
and like you know, like Deadpool's like punching him, and he's like, everyone fears the T Rex,
yeah,
and then like he's doing like a random, like, he's saying random shit as he's being dragged, and then he cuts his hand off. He
yeah,
says like, "Oh, have you ever seen the ending of
100,
128 days later?" Oh
127
no,
hours.
it's
Yeah, it's 127
127
hours.
hours. Spoiler
Yeah,
alert.
yeah,
Oh, like fuck.
yeah. Just cuts his hand off. Yeah. I will say, if we're touching on the comedy a bit, I didn't find this film as funny as I remember it being. And I think it's possibly because when I first saw these films, I was, a teenager, and sort of when you're a teenager, I don't want to say that. Maybe it's just because I'm a few years older now that it doesn't work. Because when I first saw this, I thought this was like an amazing film, and I still do like it. It just didn't hit the same way as it did when I was a 15-year-old. It's not quite the and I know some, and I don't think that's a problem with the film per se. It's aiming at a sort of specific demographic, and there's no problem with that. It just, yeah, it doesn't
I
work as well for me personally.
I think with when it comes to like comedy and all that kind of stuff, like comedy movies and all that,
Mm.
really you only find it continuously funny the second time you watch it, and then like if you watch
Mm.
it onwards, it's like jokes don't hit as much anymore because I know the jokes already. It's
Yeah,
still a good
I've definitely had
movie,
that before.
and like
Mhm,
I feel like that's still the same with Deadpool. Like
mhm,
I love it because it's Deadpool and the jokes you know the jokes already.
mhm,
I still like it because it's very true to the character and the character's really done well
mhm,
in these movies.
mhm.
But I don't necessarily find it funny. It's more the fact that um again it's because once you've rewatched something and it has certain jokes, you know the
Mhm.
jokes now. So you know you
Yeah,
lose that
no,
kind of funny surprise aspect.
that's definitely very fair. I think, yeah, usually if I watch something and I find it funny, it's more that I haven't seen it in a long time. Like if it's been years since I've seen a movie or a TV show or something, and then there's bits of comedy, I do laugh more at them if I haven't seen them in years because you sort of forget certain jokes, I guess, forget certain moments, and I didn't have that with this film. I didn't think it was unfunny. It just wasn't. When I first saw it, I thought it was like laugh out loud funny, and this time I thought like, oh, that was a funny. It was like a chuckle. It was like a funny,
Yeah,
but it wasn't
I would.
a
I
laugh
will
out loud
say
funny.
that the there's two different versions of both movies
Mm.
because I noticed I didn't get to see Deadpool 1 in the cinema, um,
Mhm,
but I saw Deadpool 2 in the cinema, and
mhm,
when I rewatched it, I was like, that scene's different, that joke's different. That didn't happen in when I saw it in the cinema. So they
mhm.
actually have like two different versions, with different jokes and a couple other different scenes
Yeah,
happen.
I mean, there was in 2018 they released the Once Upon a Deadpool like cut of the film where they made sort of a PG version of that film uh, using the framing device of fucking Princess Bride, which I
Mm.
didn't see, but I remember, which I thought like that's not a bad idea though to sort of so more so people can see the film. They just see a different version of the film. I think that's, or I don't say, but I think that's all right. Um, but yeah, I
But
didn't watch that film for this. I just watched the sort of standard versions of these films.
and the thing is, well, it makes the cinema version a lot more unique, I
Hmm.
guess, because you can only see the cinema version while it's in cinema. That's
Yeah.
you somehow managed to pirate it.
Mm.
Um, but the like the DVD version, oh wow, shocking DVDs, or the streamed version and all that kind of stuff
Mm.
is uh is different to the cinema, so it kind of brings like a like oh I only got the experience of seeing the cinema version once, and I it
Mm.
brings like kind of like that's kind of unique, that's kind of different, you know.
Mm. Yeah. No.
And it's only
Definitely.
subtle changes. It's only like subtle changes to like jokes or what Ryan or like what Deadpool slash Ryan Reynolds says. I
Mm.
know in the second movie, I think it was the scene when he's on the wheelchair in the X-Men
Mm.
house, and I think
Yeah.
he goes past the door and it has all the other X-Men in there. I think that's
Yeah.
a
That
cinema
that
version.
that's the version of the film I found and watched. But yeah, I don't remember seeing that the first time I watched it. I don't remember it
I know
anyway.
he said different stuff. I know when in the beginning of the second film when he's trying to kill himself.
Mm.
Um, he he says absolutely different things in the in the cinema release. He's like, he when he's on the barrel, he says "fuck Wolverine," but in
Mm.
the streamed DVD version, he goes, "Oh, there's got to be a way to kill myself."
Yeah, yeah. There's um,
So like they changed the
mm,
dialogue up, which I find very interesting, and is a very interesting choice because not a lot of movies do that.
yeah. I think that's the only other sort of recent example I could think of was Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse recently. There were like different versions of the films at
Mm.
different places, and they weren't major changes. They were just sort of subtle, sort of small differences that you probably wouldn't notice really. Which
Dialogue
is
changes.
yeah, dialogue changes and that kind of thing. Um, yeah, I mean to sort of get back to Deadpool, the first film specifically. There's also T.J. Miller in it in this sort of this part that sort of it feels like it is designed like they just sort of just filmed a load of
Just
stuff
put
and just said
TJ.
just improv and
Yeah, it's
just
just
make stuff
TJ
up.
Miller being TJ Miller.
Yeah, and just improving for hours and just because I remember I think I saw in like the trailers and stuff they had sort of those scenes of him like when he first sees Deadpool after he's become all
He
wrinkly and
becomes
terrible.
a
He's got like a
mutant
bunch of I remember seeing like there were definitely several different versions in like trailers
takes.
and
Yeah.
marketing material I saw.
I
Um,
think my favorite one was "You look like an avocado, but fucked a slightly older avocado."
yeah, but
I
it
like
wasn't like
that.
it was hate fucking. It wasn't nice. It was there was something wrong with the relationship,
Yeah,
whatever it was.
yeah, yeah. I think, and then
Yeah,
it made I feel like that really helped market the movie is doing all those different kind of cuts and all kind of stuff because that's Deadpool. Like Deadpool has never been a very like don't get me wrong, he gets pretty serious. He can be serious,
yeah,
but he's not always a very serious character.
mm,
Um, the fact his actual character's name Wade Wilson is a to make fun of a DC character called Slade Wilson, which is Deathstroke,
yes, that's I
and
mean that's a
that's
big
what
a
that's
direct
what Deadpool
parody.
originally was
Mm.
a character to make fun of Deathstroke, and he just from that he just became pretty funny, just a good character, and like I
Mm.
love the music too. The music,
Oh
how they
yeah,
made
I mean the
music.
film
The
is got a curated soundtrack as
mm,
but it never feels the thing I've noticed with some films when they curate a soundtrack is they get great songs, but they don't get songs that work. Like it just sort of is like, oh, we can put a famous song in here, and people will be like, oh, I know that song. Whereas I think some films are very good at, like Quentin Tarantino, he's very good at just finding a song and
mm.
curating a song. Or James Gunn did it very well with Guardians of the Galaxy. I felt, and I think
Oh
this
yeah,
film does a
Garden's
solid
music was awesome.
and I think this film does a
Yeah,
solid job of finding really good songs that do
well,
work as well.
one of the first songs is when he's sitting on the what is it like a intersection or into
Yeah, like
bypass or whatever it's called,
yeah, just a sort of
bridge, and
yeah,
he's drawing, and it's like, have you seen this guy? And it has I can't remember what the name of the song, but he's like jamming to it and stuff like that.
yeah. I think it's called just Shoop. I think that's what the song's called.
Yeah.
Is that what? Which I thought was a really good song. And again, the film it does a very good job at getting together a nice collection of songs, but they and it goes for the second film as well. I think the second film also has a solid curated soundtrack. And from I haven't listened to the soundtrack for the third film yet, but I know there's a bunch of they released like a
I was gonna
curated soundtrack.
the starting credits in Deadpool 2 when they're
Mm,
doing Out of Ashes, and it's like
mm.
old James Bond style kind of. I'm like, I love that, and how they were like going like, did they really just do that?
Yeah, exactly. That's the
Directed
bit
by
that
this
I
arsehole.
yeah, exactly. The two films have yeah, the credits, but they sort of change them up so they don't have people's names. They just sort of have like sort of I guess sort of jokey credits, which I imagine the third film will probably do as well.
Mm.
Um,
Well, in the first film's credits, there's a bit when like a card of Ryan Reynolds' Green Lantern shows up, and
yeah, there's a Green Lantern cut.
and and I think it said, I think I can't remember. I think it might have been like from the creators of Green Lantern, or oh, the mind of
Yeah,
this arsehole or something like that, And I'm like,
yeah,
oh,
exactly.
that's funny.
Yeah, and there's lots of this is a very self-referential film, which can definitely become annoying. I think for some people, I didn't mind it as much because that is just kind of what Deadpool is. But I know people who don't enjoy Marvel films just in general, but they are getting very they don't like Deadpool and they think Deadpool's been a very they think sort of he's they don't find him funny. I think he sort of which I think Deadpool I don't want to blame Deadpool as a film or the characters. It's just sort of when something becomes popular, you do run into other films are trying to emulate that, and that definitely can be sort of like they sort of forget like they don't understand like what made this work the first time. They sort of try
That
and
happened a lot after Deadpool 1. Is that a lot? I found like a lot of movies were trying to copy Deadpool,
hmm.
and I was like, oh, please stop.
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest
Because,
examples I would say was probably Suicide Squad, which I mean, I guess was more trying
mm,
to emulate Guardians of the Galaxy, but also to a degree was trying to emulate Deadpool because it's a mess of a film. It's such a weird
the music was good,
yeah
don't get me wrong.
it's a solid
I
collection of songs, but they also which don't fit. I don't think any of them really fit. But it was also trying to emulate what had been done with Deadpool and Guardians of the Galaxy as well to a degree. I think, and I
Look, there
think
was only one good character in that movie anyway.
it's not a good. Yeah, it's not the first Suicide Squad is not a good film.
Yeah.
And I think it isn't. It is not. It's not unfair to say that Deadpool because you need people to sort of understand what makes Deadpool work, and not and when you have people who try and recreate that and try and do what Deadpool did, it's like you're not doing this because you have some sort of artistic sort of justification for doing it. You're just doing it because it was a thing that was popular. So I think and
I
studios are very bad at that. I think when they sort of see something
Oh
that's
yeah,
popular and like, well, we have to do this because this is, and then by the time the film comes out, it's like people don't care about that anymore. Like
yeah.
you should just stick with
And the
what you
thing that
have,
I
and
feel
sort of, they get played by a certain actor, and then it's kind of like, well, can anyone else play this part? Because we sort of, there are certain characters where, like, if they were to bring do Batman, for example, is a very I don't think there's many actors who you could say are they only they can play Batman. I think that sort of Deadpool is one of those characters who there needs to I mentioned it before, but I think you do need a certain kind of actor to play that part, and you can't just sort of drop any actor in. You need a specific actor to be able to play Deadpool because I mean a lot of the whole appeal of Deadpool is just the witty one-liners and the improv the improv nature of the character,
Oh
and it
yeah.
would be hard to improv is a very difficult thing to be like good at. Like actors, they try and do improv, and it often can lead to just being like, well, you're just saying, it just sort of feels like weird, sort of tangents. But I think Ryan Reynolds, he has that. And I mean, if you see Ryan Reynolds in interviews and everything, he does just have that where he just sort of does come up, he does just sort of, he
Look,
does
he
have those.
screams ADHD in a lot of his interviews. He has like, if you've watched some of his interviews, he goes and has like a lot of squirrel moments, if you get what I mean.
Mm, mm,
Um, but he's yeah, you can see that his character really, like Deadpool, really leans into his personality really well. Like his personality
mhm.
leans into Deadpool really well. It's a good
Yeah.
blend of that cast.
Yeah. I want to mention about this film that it only had a $58 million budget, which is a lot of money, but it I think it's nice that the film does keep it a bit small scale for this one. It
Mhm.
doesn't go to it keeps it sort of a more character based story. And I
Like they
mean the
didn't do
second one,
anything world ending, you
it's
know.
just he wants to get revenge on this guy, and it's a very well, and I do like that the sort of Deadpool 2 sort of makes it a bit bigger, and Deadpool 3, based on what I've seen from the marketing and the trailers and everything, I mean, Deadpool 3 is, dealing with the multiverse. It's like this massive, world-ending event. So I do like that these films are, because I'm so used to superhero films, and so many of them are just big world-ending events. It's nice to watch one that is just a simple, hey, we're just gonna have a little sort of smaller human story that is sort of focusing on this, just this sort of a small group of characters, because as
Feel
much
like
as I enjoy Marvel films and superhero films, it does get a bit boring when all of them are like, well, the world's about to end, we have to deal with this now, and it's like, oh, I can't wait to just have something that's a bit small. But
that's
anyway,
why.
I think I did like that about Deadpool. That it also, the referential stuff, it didn't. Because I feel like this new Deadpool film is going to be a massively self-referential film. I mean, just based on the trailers, it's definitely got a lot of. I don't want to go into it too much, in case those of you listening haven't seen the trailers and don't want to. But they've shown a lot of stuff in these like trailers and the marketing, and I'm like, there's got to be some big stuff that happens in it, because like they've like revealed a lot about this film from the marketing. So I do have to wonder what is like. There's got, because they're showing a lot of things, so I'm wondering, because I remember when Doctor Strange 2 was coming out, they were revealing a lot of stuff in the marketing for that film. Like, I remember those
Mm.
trailers had a lot of characters in them, and I'm like, well, so there's got to be something big. And to be fair, I was left disappointed with Doctor Strange, because it was like, you showed a lot of stuff and there's not much else. It's kind of like you've shown almost everything
I feel like
to
a lot
what
of
is.
trailers do that these days,
Yeah,
is that they show too much.
I think that's I think trailers. I mean, trailers are very bad at keeping. And I don't know why that is. I think I don't know why you would choose to do that. I feel like part of the cinema experience for the audience is to be like, let's hide all this. I remember when Spider-Man No Way Home came out, and I mean, people kind of figured like Peter and Andrew Garfield and Tom Maguire, they're going to be in the film, but they did
Mm.
hide them from the marketing. I think, the film. I personally prefer the second film. Actually, I thought the second film was far more.
Yeah, the second film was a major improvement to the series, to like now trilogy. Um,
Hmm.
Josh Brolin as Cable.
Mm.
I actually
Yeah,
prefer him. Like, don't get me wrong, I love him as Thanos. I feel like he was a pretty good pick as Thanos,
yeah.
but I actually prefer him as Cable.
But yeah, he just fits that role, and I think that's really good because I think sort of in certain ways, comic book movies were sort of not. They were sort of afraid of making characters look like the comic book versions of those characters. Like they sort of changed. In some cases, it made sense to me, but I
Right.
do appreciate when like I remember when X-Men came out, they sort of changed them from sort of the bright blue, and like Wolverine didn't have the yellow spandex or anything. He's very well known for having.
Which he does now,
Um,
which is awesome.
he does now, which is I do like that. And I think that's yeah, I think it's good that sort of comic book films are sort of willing to be like, hey, no, we're just gonna have a one-to-one adaptation of this character. We're not gonna make any changes. We're just gonna go right for it. And I think that's great. I think it's great that yeah, Wolverine in this new Deadpool as the yellow suit, he looks like
Hmm. He
Wolverine
looks
from the comic.
like Wolverine. Yeah.
And I think
And
that's
like,
great. I don't dis I didn't hate the sort of leather sort of black suits they
oh,
had in the films, but they're not as sort of they are very dark. And to talk about Deadpool, I guess it doesn't like it does have a there is the origin story, but it's weaved into the film. It's not sort of like the film starts with okay, here's half an hour establishing this character's backstory. It's sort of something you learn over the
well,
the
I was gonna
first
say
chunk of the film.
mm, the origin story, although similar, again, isn't picture perfect in the comics, but I
Mhm.
like that. It doesn't have to be picture perfect. It doesn't have to. He got his powers in a similar way still in the
Mhm.
Weapon X program, same way that Wolverine got his powers. Um, well, same way that Wolverine got adamantium details. But I like it how it's still incorporated the important parts of the backstory while making it its own story.
Yeah, exactly. It does sort of a. It's sort of yeah, because I'm not like massively familiar with Deadpool in the comics, but he is like dying of cancer, right? Am I?
Oh yeah,
That's the part of
he's
the.
always been dying from cancer. That's always a thing.
Yeah, I mean, on the whole, I do like both of these films. I didn't, yeah, enjoy them as much as I did when I had first seen them, several years ago. But I still do enjoy them. I had a good time watching them. It's just sort of they're a bit, yeah, they're not as good as I remember them being, and I guess that's what getting sort of older. I guess sort of I guess outgrown is the word I would use, and that's not like me trying. That's not like I'm not trying to insult them, but they are aimed sort of more. They are aimed at like a
The teenage.
demographic. Yeah, for a teenager demographic, and that's okay. Like I can appreciate that, and appreciate that it's not quite for me anymore. But I still do like
I
them both.
definitely think the second film is better than the first film.
Yeah, I think
Not
that
in the
as
way that
well.
I'm like, oh, the first film shit compared to the second one. No, I'm more of it improved on the base that the first film set.
Yeah, the first film felt very. Yeah, I don't know if safe is the word I would use, but the first film very much sort of had a
Set the tone for
set
the
the
movies.
tone. Yeah, and it sort of had a lot there to sort of establish everything, and then you've got the second one that can
It put
play with it a bit more, I guess.
Yeah, the first film kind of like put the bar in a certain spot, and then the second one
Yeah,
kind of raised it. Like kept on going. Like, okay, we know where it's at. Let's go higher and do it higher.
yeah, yeah. And I think that's what you should want in a sequel is it takes, like, because the best sequels are films that take what the first film established and just raised everything. Like Terminator 2
Oh
just does what Terminator did, but it does it bigger, it does it better. You sort of, you get that with if when you're doing a sequel, so this kind of sequel, you do need to sort of go a bit better. I mean, they bring time travel into it, which I love time travel as like a narrative concept. I think time travel's great.
but it can get messy as well.
It can get messy, but I think this film it's very simple time travel stuff. Like it's not the most, because you're not trying to think, well, wait, what does this mean? Like you are like, okay, no, this works. It makes sense. It's very simple. It's not like we're gonna do this whole thing of like
It's
the
not
rules.
MCU time travel.
Yeah, it's not like Avengers Endgame where it's like, well, this time travel doesn't actually work. You sort of break your own rules a bit. But yeah, I do quite like it. I give both films a 7 out of 10. I really like that. I do quite like them, but yeah, they're just not as good as for me anymore. But they're not bad.
I'll give it like the first film a 7.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with that, and then I think I'm gonna give the second film an 8 because it just raised the
Mm-hmm.
bar slightly more. It raised the bar
Yeah,
more than the first film.
yeah, no,
Um,
that's fair enough.
and honestly, I still in the second film, I feel like I still find some of the jokes a little bit more funnier than the first
Mm-hmm.
film.
Yeah.
Uh, and honestly, like, and I love how the second one got a little bit more bold, a little bit more outrageous.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of like that.
Yeah.
Like, in the end scene when he's traveling through time and he goes to Austria.
Yeah,
And
I mean, we should probably touch on the post-credit scenes because I don't think I had seen the post-credit scenes when I first watched Deadpool 2. I think I had seen it for the first film where they do the Ferris Bueller parody,
yeah,
but I had
and they mentioned uh no, they didn't mention Josh Brolin as Cable, but they did mention
they
Cable.
mentioned they said, yeah, we're going to do Cable in the next one, but they said, yeah, we don't know who we're going to get, just a tall guy with a flat top, Dolph Lundgren, Mel Gibson, that kind of thing. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, second film rather, yeah. I don't think I had seen those post credit scenes, and there were so probably some of my favorite bits of the film were those
Yeah,
post credit
Ryan
scenes in that
Reynolds
second.
shoots himself.
Yeah, I thought that was a really good. I thought like, oh, that is really, again, it's a fourth wall breaking, referential joke, but it works. It's funny. It fits with what Deadpool is. He
I love how he
saved.
goes back into the other the X-Men Origins or whatever, where it has Deadpool and he
Yeah, and
shoots
he
that
kills.
Deadpool and he shoots it
Yeah,
multiple times and he said, your mate Wade comes by and says to pick up those claws again, you'll do it,
yeah. I thought that was great. I thought that was a really good moment. He saves Vanessa, who dies. We didn't really touch on that, but she gets killed at the beginning of the second film.
Which I think that was a big shock. That was a shocker,
It
actually.
was, yeah. Because I'd seen some of the trailers for the second film, and my sort of understanding was like, oh, it's like Terminator. It's going to be Ryan Reynolds has to protect this kid. I did not expect his girlfriend to die at the beginning of the film. I was like, oh shit, they've killed off her. I
And
did not expect that.
I also like to touch that Deadpool is a very sad character in the comics as
Mm.
well. Like he's very much, and I love it how in that brief moment they touched on how sad of a character Deadpool can be
Yeah, I mean,
in
we
the
get
beginning.
a
Like,
sort of montage of him attempting to commit suicide, and he's like, surely something will work,
and
and
like
nothing does.
one of my favorite parts is at the beginning when the pest killed Vanessa. He just hugs him and then rolls into in front of a car, and I'm like, because like,
Yeah.
that's just interest. That's how Deadpool uses his powers. He's like, oh,
Yeah.
I'll just stab myself because I can't die.
Yeah.
Um, but also, again, it shows that he's a very sad character and is very impactful, and how impactful Vanessa's death was.
Hmm. Yeah.
And
No. Definitely.
it's a good movie, and they didn't like be like they didn't sully Deadpool too much to it. Like, he was
Yeah.
still Deadpool. Like, he still made jokes and shit like that and fucked around. But that and little brief moment of his seriousness came out, then
Hmm.
went back to normal Deadpool, which was like very good flow with the character. That he wasn't like.
Hmm.
And then I actually really like the ending, like you said. I really like the post credits when he saves Vanessa. I've always loved how jokey the most of the post credits for the both Deadpool movies were.
Mm.
But I also loved how they hint at the next movie a little bit, but in a more Deadpool kind of way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not in
Yeah.
like like, oh, show, not in like the end of Endgame, not Endgame, sorry, Infinity War, when it's Nick
Mhm.
Fury calling, you know, using a pager to call Captain Marvel, and it was like that was still
Yeah.
like a huge like, oh my god, that's Captain Marvel, but
Hmm.
it was very much like, first movie was like, yeah, we'll get Cable or something with a flat top, and then
Yeah.
like in this one, he's like joking about like when you're when he kills his previous self and then talks to Wolverine, and I'm like, I like that. I like how it's very much on brain for Deadpool.
Hmm. Yeah. And yeah. So yeah, we're tying this into the release of Deadpool and Wolverine, which is out this week. Which I'm I want to be more excited for it. I think I think Marvel right now is just sort of, I'm very much like, okay, I'm kind of
I
like,
feel
I
like
just
this is a make or break
I think
for
this
Marvel.
yeah, I think because the last few films have been mixed. Like the reaction, like the Marvels, people did not like the
Yeah,
Marvels, which I mean I didn't care for it either. I didn't think it was that good. Guardians of the Galaxy 3, everybody loved, everybody thought was great. Ant
that was
Man
amazing.
3, Ant Man 3, people didn't really like. Black Panther Wakanda Forever, I really loved, but I think was not as positive as the. Like it wasn't as well received as the first one was. Same with Thor, same with Doctor Strange. I think Marvel, I'm at a place now where I'm not excited about seeing what Marvel does next. And because I remember in the lead up to Endgame, I was like, I cannot wait to see the next Marvel film. Everything's, they're all going to be great. And then sort of after Endgame, I had a bit of a like, well,
Where
can
do
we
we
just be
go
done
from
now?
now?
Like
Yeah, where do we go from here now?
we've built up this show for the last, we've built up this this franchise for 11 years. We've hit the end point. Do we need to continue anymore? Like, I think we can just stop, but no, we're still going, and it's just like, man, I just think Marvel is in a bit of a weird place right now, honestly. And I love Marvel films. I'm a big fan of most of them. It's just sort of like, what are we gonna do now? Because it's like,
I just hope that joining Foxtel slash Deadpool to like the MCU doesn't kind
mhm,
of like downgrade Deadpool.
mm,
Like, they make it less violent, less gory.
Yeah.
They like do a lot more all that kind of stuff. Like
Mm.
I feel like the movies. I just hope they don't Disneyfy it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen based on the trailers I've seen of this new Deadpool, they are swearing. They're saying "fuck" a lot, and I think
Yes.
it's which I think is to be honest, I think I was like when they sort of announced we're acquiring Fox, I'm like, well, what? Okay, are you gonna like make Deadpool less violent? Because I feel like that's gonna upset people. But I'm just looking here. It's got an MA-15 rating, so it is, a more adult film for strong, crude sexual humor, bloody violence, and coarse language. So they are still making it like the other Deadpool films. They are not, which I think is good. I honestly, I think if they were to Disneyfy it, it would kind of make it be like, well, what was the like? I feel like part of the point of Deadpool is he is a bit more crass, and and I think that works. And so I will see it. I just am not as excited as I wish I was. And the trailers, to be honest, I haven't loved the trailers. Like I don't dislike the trailers or anything. I am
Feel like
just
they've given some of the I feel like the first two trailers were vague, and then the final trailers added a couple more
yeah,
characters to it. It's
yeah.
like,
That was
oh,
my thing.
okay.
Yeah,
And
that was what I was thinking.
I,
Like,
I don't kind of don't mind that they're at the very. This is like the very last trailer before it's in cinemas, so it kind of
mm,
they've kind of added a couple more characters in the trailers to draw more people in, which I
yeah,
kind of think is cool. But also, I'm like, there's more surprises that you could have given us that we would have
yeah,
gone like,
no,
oh wow. But they've still
yeah,
been relatively vague with the plot and all that. Like we know
yeah,
certain things, but we don't
yeah,
know
no.
what direction
I
it's
was
going.
sort of when the first couple trailers, I was like, what is actually the plot of this movie? Because I don't think I know what it is yet. And I was like, that's good. I don't want to know what the plot of this film is really. They weren't showing that much in the marketing material or anything. I'm like, okay, cool. That's good. I like this. Don't show me much. And then yeah, this most recent trailer, they sort of give more, and I'm like, okay, so that's sort of a general plot. And some of it, I was like, okay, I don't mind this. I like that they sort of established that this Wolverine isn't the one that died in Logan. Like this is a variant, and I'm like, okay, good. You're not undoing that because I was like, don't do that. Don't undo what was that
That
great
movie. That
ending.
movie was awesome. Yeah.
That was a great move. Yeah, this is a completely different variant. I'm like, okay, good. This is fine. I can accept this. But yeah, I'm just interested to see, and I'm interested to see how Deadpool interacts with other MCU characters because we haven't really had much fourth wall breaking. Well, we had She-Hulk, which was fourth wall breaking. There was also a TV show, and it was sort of
And it was also Dog Water TV show.
it didn't. She has yet to integrate with the other many other characters. So I'm like, I am interested
Yeah.
to see how they handle Deadpool when they add him properly into the
Um,
MCU.
but
Because this one, it sort
I'm
of feels like he's
hoping
still in a different universe compared to the
kind
others.
of I'm hoping this kind of opens up a little bit of not a floodgate, but opens up to like adding a lot more of like the Sony version. Like they've already done
Mm.
a lot of reference like into the Spider Verse.
Hmm.
They said Miguel mentions don't even get me started on F616. No,
Yes,
no, it
they
was
have.
and no F999 something something whatever.
Yeah, they've
616 is
very
the
much
main
been
comic.
teasing this, and it's like
Yeah,
in
and
Across the Spider Verse, they had like all these different Spider Men, and they had like the live action, yes, Spider
yeah, they
Man
had a
in
couple
there.
of live action characters in there. they mentioned the incident with Doctor Strange and MCU Doctor Strange and MCU Spider-Man, which is really cool. So, like, I'm hoping that this movie is a little bit of a catalyst to open up to start getting a lot more of the non-main MCU, like the Sony and the Foxtel verse in,
Yeah, I
but
think, no,
make it
definitely.
quality instead of quantity.
Yeah, I'd rather they do this properly, because I feel like this film could very much be sort of a test of, like, we're gonna
Oh
sort
yeah,
of go for this a bit. We're gonna sort of establish this, and we're gonna try something, and we'll see how it works. The thing is, of course, though, like, they are very deep into this multiverse saga to the point that it's like they can't turn around and be like, okay, we're not going to do that anymore. It's like they have committed to doing the multiverse as the thing for this sort of saga. So it's like, okay, they need to figure out what they're doing, to be honest, because at this point, I don't think I really know what they're doing. Yeah, I mean, they've lost Jonathan Majors. They're not bringing him back for, obvious reasons. Yeah, and I think that they could recast that role, or they could just introduce a new character, but then that would feel messy because it's like, well, you've spent all this time establishing Kang, and now you're just like, nah, we're just gonna change it. It's like, well, I don't know. I'm not as interested as I was like 3-4 years ago.
Marvel has started to fall off as well. Marvel has definitely started to fall off for certain things, especially in, again, quality. CGI has just, for some reason, has decided to go have a nap. More than
CGI,
have
man.
a fucking like Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. That CGI was, but I'm hoping this, because I've always liked how they've taken time with the Deadpool movies. They haven't just pumped them out. Like what was the time difference? How many years in between the first movie and the second movie was there in release dates?
It was like 2 years, a little over 2 years.
Between like, I know they were already working on production after the first movie, right?
Yeah.
Or at least once the first movie got successful.
Yeah, I think you sort of don't, unless, like, because Deadpool, was a sort of like, oh, is this a bit of a gamble? So let's not work on a second one yet until we know this one is like a thing and people like this, and then we'll do. But I guess also because it's Fox, it's like they had the money to be like, well, we can invest into a second film.
And the second movie came out, and it's been like way longer than
6
the break
years.
between. 6 years. So that they've taken their time with this, which I hope has been the benefit to the movie, that they've taken time with this and they haven't just pumped it out.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just gonna do some reading and see how long this has been in it, because I imagine this was probably in production after the second one. Like,
relatively close after the second one. There's no way it wasn't.
Yeah, so they said basically after the second one came out, they said Ryan Reynolds would be taking a bit of a break from the character. They were planning to do an X-Force movie, but this was around the time when Disney bought Fox, so now they so I guess the X-Force movie they were gonna do didn't happen. And so they've been sort of working on it around then in sort of 2018 when the second one came out. They'd always considered doing a road trip movie featuring Hugh Jackman. Like that was always sort of what was the plan. And so they sort of worked on this. So they've been working on it basically since 2018, so 6 years they had been working on it with this idea. Like, this isn't just an idea Disney came up with. It's like this was what they had wanted to do was a Deadpool Wolverine team up sort of road trip movie, which does look like that's going to be what this new one is. So it's
which is very much like a Deadpool kind of thing. Like Deadpool likes to just pop up randomly, like let's go on an adventure, and they end up saying no, but they go on the adventure anyway because Deadpool kind of lands them in the middle of shit.
yeah. And they sort of so they've been developing the film for a while. They basically said they didn't really have a pitch. They would just sort of been like, look, we would after the second one where we sort of need a bit of a break from the character. Plus Fox being acquisition by Disney, so it's like it's basically up to Disney to let us make it. Because I'm sure Fox would have been like, yeah, let's get a new one in production like as soon as we can. But because Disney now owned it, so they've been working on this since like 2020, basically. They've been working on this, and so for the last 6 years, basically, they'd been having talks with writers and stuff. I mean, like, hey, do you want to do a Deadpool? So they have been working on it for about 6 years, basically. So I hope that shows up in the film. Like, it shows that like they've been working on it for a long time. But I hope it's good. I want it to be.
If they're going to do more stuff with Cable as well, because if this ends up having a little bit more of the X-Men characters in it, I wonder if there's going to be like an interaction with Cable and Cyclops.
Well, that is interesting because
that's just going on the like. Cable was in the second movie, and he's still there. He's still in that timeline, and I'm just curious if he's in the third movie, and if there is a little bit, if they end up doing a little bit more of the X-Men showing up, if there's going to be interaction with Cable and Cyclops, which is Cable's father. Not a lot of people know that. So it's going to be interesting. I feel like it's going to be an interesting movie. It has promise to, I feel like, for me, restore a little bit into the MCU, because again, like I've been pretty like, MCU movie, whatever. Another one.
No, definitely. I think
it took me forever. A renewal, hopefully.
Yeah, I hope, because I kind of feel like if this one doesn't work, I'm kind of not interested in what they're gonna do. I think like the new Captain America, I have no massive interest in seeing like immediately, like when it comes out, like because I mean I don't really like Falcon as Captain America personally. I just am like, what are we doing here, guys? Like, I need to figure this shit out, because it's like, otherwise, I'm just like, I'll see these movies because I've invested all this time into them anyway. But it's like, will I see them at the cinema? Possibly not. I might just wait till they're on Plus. This is the problem. They can do. I just think they're just rushing everything. I think the Infinity Saga was 11 years of films. Like,
and
that was great. That's what they need to be doing with this art, is be like, it doesn't have to necessarily be 11 years, but it needs to be, a decent amount of time to establish everything. Yeah. And it's like, we're not getting, and I mean, Avengers 5? Yeah, Avengers 5, is coming out in 2026, I think. Yeah, Avengers 5, 2026. But it's like, I don't know. Have they established
left in
everything?
the Avengers?
Yeah, because Thor. I mean, I feel like Chris Hemsworth is going to be finishing up that character soon. Like, and they've not calling it the Kang Dynasty anymore. It's just Avengers 5, because I guess they're not going to do Kang anymore, which is just like, great, you established this character, and now you sort of. I mean, I guess they've dealt with the character, but I don't know.
I thought they dealt with the character very lame. So
Yeah, I mean, the Loki TV series, they dealt with him, I guess, but not particularly satisfying. Well, nor was it unsatisfying. It was just like, oh, okay, that's how we're dealing with. Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, that's pretty much it on Deadpool. But yeah, thank you all for listening to this week's episode. I've covered the MCU quite a few times in the past. Aaron and I, we've actually both covered the MCU before. We did an episode on Thor 2 years ago now, and we were very, very much looking forward to Thor: Love and Thunder, and well, it didn't turn out exactly as we had hoped. I mean, I liked it, but I wasn't. It could have been a lot better, and Aaron was severely disappointed. I
Yes,
did
I was
an episode
very
on
upset about that movie.
yeah, Doctor Strange. I did an episode on Guardians of the Galaxy. I haven't done episodes on every Marvel film yet because I sort of tie Marvel episodes into sort of the newer ones. So if Captain America, I'll talk about Captain America and that kind of thing. Aaron's joined for quite a few episodes in the past. We've done 28 Days Later a while back now, like 2 years, 2.5 years.
That was one of the first episodes we did.
Yeah, we did 50 Shades of Grey, which was not good. We weren't pleased with those films.
Uh,
Yeah, I've done a lot of episodes, so there's gonna be something there that interests you. So I hope you've all enjoyed listening. Thank you, Aaron, for joining me for
no
this
worries,
week's
always
episode.
happy to.
And yeah, I'll see you guys all in the next one. Goodbye. Hey there, everyone. So, just before this episode ends, the episode's just finished. It's literally just about to wrap up. But I want to make an announcement that I have launched a Patreon account for this podcast. So, if you have enjoyed this podcast in any way, if I've created some entertainment and you'd like to monetarily support the podcast, then go over to patreon.com/@the-movies with William Fletcher. Currently, at the time of recording, this may change in the future. There are currently 2 tiers. At this point, the first tier is going to be $3 a month. And so this is just the standard, this will be the normal tier. So you'll be given early access to episodes when they are ready and edited. If I record them earlier in advance, you will gain the ability to vote on polls for upcoming episodes, and you will receive an on-air shout-out for the duration of your subscription at the end of every episode. And then Tier 2, it's only $1 more. It's $4 a month. And so basically that will allow you to have the same perks as Tier 1, but you will also be able to access bonus episodes that I may record in the future, as well as access to extra content such as interviews, mini reviews, sort of maybe of new releases if I get the time to, that I might not cover on the main show, reviews of TV shows, maybe some quiz games, sort of behind the scenes material, even potentially. I might even put out full unedited versions of podcast episodes so you can see how the episode changes from the first, like when I record it, just the raw edit with the raw audio, no changes done to it, and then you can compare it to the edited product at the end. So I really hope that you consider supporting me on Patreon. Feel free to support me if you so choose to. Again, that's at patreon.com/@the-movies with William Fletcher. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and I hope I see you over on Patreon. Goodbye.